My name is Nate. 4 years ago, my life flipped upside down in less than 30 seconds. I was a construction foreman, proud of the calluses on my hands and the sweat I poured into every building site. That day started like any other: coffee, hard hat, checklist. But one faulty cable and an overloaded beam sent me crashing 3 stories down onto concrete. I remember the pain, the sound of bone meeting steel, the screaming, some mine, some not. When I woke up in the hospital, I was told I'd never walk again without assistance. Pelvis shattered, vertebrae crushed, 2 surgeries already done. But what truly broke me wasn't the accident. It came 2 weeks later when my wife Heather walked into my hospital room with tearless eyes and a packed bag. "I'm not cut out for this," she said. "You're not the man I married anymore." And just like that, she was gone. No goodbye kiss, no promises, just silence, and the echo of her heels walking out of my life. That was the moment I realized recovery wasn't just physical, it was emotional, and it would take everything I had to survive. After Heather left, the sterile white walls of that hospital room felt more like a prison than a place of healing. I wasn't just dealing with the aftermath of my injuries. I was trying to understand how the woman who once swore to love me in sickness and in health could vanish when I needed her the most. Friends visited less and less. My parents lived states away. The only company I had was the sound of the heart monitor and the quiet shuffle of nurses changing shifts. I was alone with my thoughts, and those thoughts were dark. I wanted to scream. I wanted to quit. But then came Maggie. She was a no-nonsense physical therapist with a sharp tongue and sharper instincts. She didn't pity me. She challenged me. "If you want to rot in that bed, fine," she told me on day 1. "But if you want your life back, start fighting." And I did, inch by painful inch. It took nearly a year of surgeries, rehab, and pure stubbornness to stand without collapsing. Another 6 months before I could walk with a cane. And throughout that time, Heather never called, never wrote. I found out later that she'd sold our house, took half our savings, and moved to another city. Her number was disconnected. Her social media was gone. She vanished like I never existed. But in the void she left, something unexpected began to grow. Resilience. And I promised myself, if I ever stood tall again, it wouldn't be for her. It would be for me. After I was finally discharged, I moved into a cramped 1-bedroom apartment provided through a rehab support program. It wasn't much: old carpet, a leaky faucet, and the occasional raccoon outside the window, but it was mine. And for the first time in months, I had control. I used to be the man people came to for help, on the job site, at home, in life. Now I needed help just to open a jar. That bruised my pride more than I care to admit. But there's a strange kind of clarity that comes when you hit bottom. You realize the only way forward is up. That's when I met Emma. She wasn't supposed to be part of my story. We met at a community business workshop for people with disabilities, both physical and financial. She was starting a small marketing agency, and I was toying with the idea of consulting on building safety, using my experience as a foreman. Emma was all spark, red hair, quick wit, and a business plan sharper than any blueprint I'd ever drawn. But more than that, she listened. Not out of obligation, not out of sympathy, genuine interest. She asked about my accident, about my recovery, about me. One afternoon, after our 5th coffee meeting, she looked at me across the table and said, "You've still got more to build, Nate. Don't waste your blueprint." That night, for the first time in years, I didn't fall asleep angry. Emma didn't just help me believe in the business. She helped me believe in myself again. Emma and I started slow. We weren't looking for anything romantic, at least not at first. We were just 2 broken people trying to rebuild something meaningful from the ruins of our pasts. She brought the brains for branding and pitching. I brought the industry knowledge and contacts from my years in construction. Together, we created a consultancy that helped small businesses upgrade their workplace safety and accessibility. We called it Ground Up Solutions. Fitting, right? Because that's exactly where we both came from, ground zero. At first, we operated out of the library conference room and Emma's cramped kitchen table. She worked late into the night while I sketched safety plans by hand. We fought over fonts and formatting, celebrated our first $500 client like we won the lottery, and collapsed laughing when our first marketing email accidentally went out with Ground Dump Solutions in the subject line. But bit by bit, things changed. Clients came. Word spread. We moved into a shared office space. I ditched the cane. And somewhere in between grant applications and OSHA handbooks, I started looking at Emma differently. One evening, after a long day presenting at a city expo, We were cleaning up our booth. I made some dumb joke about how she carried the business while I just stood around looking handsome and disabled. She rolled her eyes, but then her smile faded into something softer. She reached out, touched my shoulder, and said, "You're not a burden, Nate. You're the strongest man I know." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My throat tightened, and for a second, all I wanted to do was break down and cry. Not because I was sad, but because someone finally saw me again. Not the broken version of me. Me. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart racing like it hadn't in years. I was falling for her, and for once, I wasn't afraid. Our relationship shifted gently. No fireworks, no dramatic confessions. Just long conversations, shared takeout boxes, and lingering looks that stayed a second too long. We started dating without saying we were dating. Emma was patient with my past. She never asked about Heather unless I brought her up. And when I did, it wasn't to rehash bitterness, it was to process. Emma never judged me for still feeling pain. She understood that healing wasn't linear. One evening, maybe a year into our relationship, she caught me staring at the long scar running down my left thigh. My muscles still twitched sometimes, a cruel reminder of the nerves that never fully recovered. I muttered, "It's ugly, I know." She sat down next to me, ran her fingers gently along the scar, and whispered, "It's not ugly. It's proof you lived through something no one else could." No one had ever spoken about my injury like that. I always saw it as weakness, as a sign of what I'd lost. But to her, it was strength. Over time, I got used to the new rhythm of life. Mornings began with Emma brewing strong coffee and me grumbling about deadlines. Evenings ended with her head on my chest as we binged crime documentaries and traded theories like detectives. We moved in together, got a dog, painted the walls of our new apartment a warm forest green because she said it reminded her of hope. Still, there was one piece missing: my children. Heather and I had 2 kids, Maya and Caleb. When she left, she didn't just take the house and the money. She took them too. For a while, she claimed it was in the kids' best interest, and in my darkest moments, I believed her. But now, I wasn't that broken man anymore. I had a business, a home, a partner who believed in me. It was time to fight for them. I hadn't seen Maya and Caleb in nearly 4 years. When Heather left, she'd made it clear. They need stability, not hospitals and pity parties. I was too ashamed, too broken, and too exhausted back then to argue. But I wasn't that man anymore. With Emma's encouragement and the help of a good family attorney, I filed for joint custody. I didn't want to rip them away from their mother. I just wanted to be their father again. To be present. The legal process was grueling. Heather didn't make it easy. She claimed I was still medically unfit, even though I'd proven myself capable in every aspect of life. Her lawyer pushed hard, dug into my financials, my medical records, even tried to use the cane I occasionally used on cold days against me. But truth has a funny way of shining through. I showed up to every hearing prepared. Emma came with me every time, never missing a beat. We brought testimony from doctors, business partners, even a former client who'd seen me rebuild lives, starting with my own. Then came the day I saw them again. Maya was 9, Caleb 7. They were taller, older, and more cautious than I remembered. At first, they barely looked at me. I didn't blame them. 4 years is a lifetime to a child. But slowly they opened up. At our second supervised visit, I brought Maya a book she loved when she was little, The Paper Bag Princess. She didn't smile, but she held on to it the whole time. At our third visit, Caleb asked if I could still whistle the Star Wars theme. I tried, and failed hilariously. He laughed, really laughed. It took time, consistency, love, but eventually, the court granted me joint custody. I'll never forget the look on Heather's face. Not anger, not sadness, just disbelief. She thought I'd stay broken, stay buried, but I didn't. I rose, and now, my kids were coming home, at least part of the time. And just when it seemed life had finally taken a turn for the better, Heather came back. It was a Friday evening, just after dinner. Emma and I had finished cleaning up. The kids were in the living room drawing pictures of our dog in various superhero costumes. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a sense of wholeness. Then there was a knock at the door. I opened it, and there she was. Heather. She looked older, not just physically, but in the way someone carries weight they can't put down. Her once meticulously styled hair was flat. Her eyes, once so sharp, were dulled, ringed with exhaustion. "Nate," she said, barely above a whisper. "Can we talk?" Emma stepped into the hallway, protective but calm. I gave her a slight nod, and she guided the kids to the balcony for some superhero mission time. Heather and I sat at the kitchen table, the table where I'd rebuilt my life one plan, one budget, one sip of late-night coffee at a time. She fidgeted with her hands. I made mistakes. I didn't respond. I just stared. I was scared after the accident. I panicked. I didn't know how to handle watching you suffer like that. You left, Heather, I said, my voice low and steady. You didn't just panic. You abandoned me. Tears welled up in her eyes. I know. I was selfish. But I've been through a lot these past few years too. And when I saw the kids talking about you, how happy they are now, I realized what I lost. I could feel the room shrinking. My heart thudded, but not out of longing. Not out of hope. Out of rage I'd buried for years. Then she said the words I never expected to hear. I want to try again. For the kids. For us. It was like a slap in the face. She walked out when I was broken. She sold our home. She erased me from our children's lives. And now that I stood again, whole, fulfilled, and finally loved, now she wanted to return. I looked her in the eyes. Heather, that version of me you left behind? He died in that hospital bed. You're 4 years too late. She covered her mouth and sobbed. But I didn't flinch. Because this wasn't a tragedy. This was closure. Heather cried quietly at the kitchen table, but the tears didn't move me. Once they would have. Once, I would have done anything to hear her say she was sorry, to beg for another chance. But that man, the one who craved her validation, was long gone. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I simply stood up and said, "You need to leave, Heather." She looked at me with red, swollen eyes, her lips trembling. "So that's it?" "No," I said. "That was it. 4 years ago, when you packed your bags and walked out. This is just the part where I finally stopped waiting for you to come back." She left without another word. I watched from the window as she walked down the driveway, disappearing into the night just as she had all those years ago. But this time, I was the one who closed the door behind her. Emma came in, her eyes searching mine. "You okay?" I nodded. "More than okay. I feel free." We sat on the couch that night, the kids curled up between us, our dog at our feet. Maya rested her head on my shoulder. Caleb had fallen asleep with a crayon in his hand. Emma looked at me and smiled softly. "You don't owe her your happiness, you know." "I know," I said. "But for a long time, I thought I did." And in that quiet moment, wrapped in warmth and belonging, I realized something profound. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes, it simply means letting go. And I was ready to let go. Completely. After Heather's visit, something shifted inside me. Not a crack, more like a clearing. The weight I didn't even realize I'd still been carrying was gone. The bitterness, the second-guessing, the quiet moments I used to spend wondering what if, all of it faded like the last streaks of sunset. Life didn't pause. The kids had a school project on animal habitats due Monday. Emma was prepping for a pitch to land our biggest contract yet. The dog had a stomach bug. It was messy. It was loud. It was perfect. Maya started calling Emma, Em, with this casual affection that made my chest ache with joy. Caleb asked if we could all go camping together, like a real family. And Emma? She never asked me to choose. She never pushed for a label. She just loved me, supported me, and lived alongside me like a true partner. One night, after the kids had gone to bed, I sat on the balcony with Emma, sipping tea as the city lights blinked in the distance. She leaned her head on my shoulder and asked, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if Heather had stayed?" I paused, thought about it. "Yeah," I said, "and I'm glad she didn't." Emma looked up at me, surprised. "If she had stayed, I never would have fought to walk again. I never would have started the business. I never would have met you." She smiled and took my hand. "So what you're saying is, I owe Heather a thank you." I laughed. "Absolutely not. But I do owe her for giving me a second chance by walking away." We sat there in silence, fingers intertwined. The kind of silence that speaks volumes. The kind that says, we've been through hell, and we're still standing. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was finally living. Life had become something beautiful, not perfect, not without its hurdles, but real, grounded, and full of purpose. With joint custody now established, Maya and Caleb spent half their time with Emma and me. Watching them blossom in a stable, loving environment was like watching my soul slowly mend. Maya took up piano. Caleb got into building Lego cities. Go figure, like father, like son. Every Friday night became our tradition, family pizza night. Emma made dough from scratch. The kids picked ridiculous toppings. Gummy bears do not belong on pizza, for the record, and we'd watch movies under a blanket fort. Ground Up Solutions was thriving too. We'd landed a contract with a regional hospital network, consulting on patient safety renovations. I gave a talk at a local business conference, and to my shock, I was approached afterward by a man who had been injured on the job just months earlier. He told me, "You made me believe I could get back up again." And I couldn't help but think about how far I'd come. From hospital bed to keynote speaker. From abandoned husband to loved father and partner. From broken man to builder, not just of structures, but of a new future. One day, Emma and I took the kids out to the lake. We grilled hot dogs, skipped stones, and just breathed. At sunset, I watched her walking along the shoreline with Maya, their laughter carried by the wind, and Caleb running ahead with a stick like it was a sword. That moment stopped time. I realized I didn't just get a second chance. I earned it. Every sleepless night, every therapy session, every step with that cursed cane, all of it led to this. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Not even the life I thought I wanted before the fall. Heather reached out once more after that lake day. A plain white envelope arrived in the mail. No return address, just my name in her unmistakable handwriting. For a split second, my chest tightened. That old reflex. That whisper, what if? Inside was a short letter. Nate, I saw the photos Emma posted on the Ground Up page. The kids look happy. So do you. I meant what I said. I was lost, and I was wrong. But it's clear now that I no longer belong in your story. I wish you all the happiness I couldn't give you. Heather, no manipulations. No guilt. Just a quiet goodbye. I held the letter for a while. Thought about how much space she used to take up in my mind. Thought about the nights I begged the universe to bring her back. And here she was, bringing herself back only to walk away again. But this time, I wasn't wounded. I wasn't angry. I was grateful. I folded the letter, placed it in the back of a drawer, and shut it away, not out of spite, but because some chapters deserve to stay closed. Emma never asked what was in the letter. She just saw my eyes afterward and knew. "You good?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Really good." Then she grinned. "Well, that's perfect timing. Because Caleb wants you to be the evil wizard in tonight's fort adventure. Maya's drawing your costume now." I laughed and stood, already hobbling toward the living room like some ancient sorcerer. There was no more room in my life for ghosts. Only love, laughter, and a future I'd built with my own two hands, even if one of them still ached on rainy days. By the time fall rolled around, life felt not just stable, but meaningful. The business had grown enough for us to hire 2 new team members. Emma spearheaded a community initiative, offering free safety audits to small nonprofit centers and schools. One Saturday afternoon, I took Maya and Caleb to a nearby construction site that had just broken ground. It was going to be a new children's hospital wing, a project Ground Up Solutions was consulting on. I showed them the blueprints. Let them wear little hard hats. They laughed when I made the dangerous dad jokes and taught them how to read site markers. Caleb tugged my sleeve. "Will this be here forever?" "Hopefully," I smiled. "If it's built right." He looked thoughtful for a moment. "Like us." I knelt down and hugged him. Exactly like us. Later that evening, back at home, Emma came out onto the porch where I sat nursing a mug of cider and watching the sunset melt into the hills. She pulled up a chair beside me, quiet for a while. Then she said, "You ever think about writing all this down?" I looked at her, puzzled. She continued, "Your story. Not just the pain, but the rebuild, the love, the redemption. There are people out there who feel stuck in the dark, Nate. You could help them find the door." That sat with me for a while. I'd never been one to talk much about feelings. But maybe it wasn't about me anymore. Maybe it was about the blueprint I'd leave behind. Not in concrete or steel, but in hope. Because no matter how deep the fall, there's always a way to rise. And someone, somewhere, might need to hear that. A few weeks later, I started writing. Not a book, not at first. Just notes. Fragments. Journal entries. Some were messy. Some were raw. Most began with sentences like, "I thought I'd never get back up again," and ended with, "But I did." Emma helped me organize them. She gently pushed me to read them aloud at a local community event, an open mic night focused on resilience and recovery. I wasn't a public speaker by any stretch. My palms sweated like crazy, and my voice cracked halfway through the first paragraph. But something happened in that room. When I finished, there was silence, and then applause. A man in the back stood up and simply said, "Thank you." That hit me harder than I expected. People lined up after, shared their stories. One woman had just lost her husband to cancer. Another man had been paralyzed in a car accident and was battling depression. Someone else said they'd been abandoned by their partner after a diagnosis. We weren't the same, but we understood each other. And suddenly, I wasn't just healing privately anymore. I was helping others heal, too. The next week, a local paper did a feature on our company and my story. Then came podcast invites, speaking gigs, emails from strangers who said, "You gave me hope." At first, I struggled with the attention. I wasn't a hero. I didn't save anyone. I just survived. But Emma reminded me, sometimes survival is the most powerful story of all. So I kept going. I carved time between work and family to write more, speak more, give more. Not because I wanted recognition, but because I knew what it felt like to be alone in the dark. And if my voice could be the light for someone else, then every scar, every night of doubt, every heartbreak, had a purpose. One crisp winter morning, the four of us, Emma, Maya, Caleb, and I, went hiking on a trail just outside the city. It wasn't a difficult climb, but it was enough to make me appreciate how far my legs had come. At the summit, we sat on a rock ledge overlooking a sprawling valley bathed in gold from the rising sun. Maya leaned against Emma, and Caleb pointed at the clouds, naming them like animals. I stood behind them, just watching, not saying anything, just feeling. This was the life I had once thought was gone forever. This was the dream I never imagined rebuilding. And yet, here it was, in quiet laughter, soft hands held together, and a sky wide enough to hold everything we'd overcome. Emma turned and looked up at me. "You okay?" I smiled. "I'm more than okay." Then Caleb chimed in. "Dad, do you think you'll ever write a book?" I chuckled. "You think anyone would read it?" Maya piped up. "I would, and I'd draw the pictures." Emma laughed. "If you don't, I might write it for you." And in that moment, surrounded by the people I loved, I realized something. This wasn't just a comeback story. It was a new story, one built not on what I lost, but what I found. The moral? Sometimes, life tears you down to your foundation, not to end you, but to give you a chance to rebuild stronger. Pain is a brutal teacher, but it forges resilience. Abandonment may leave scars, but it also clears space for the right people to step in. You can't control who leaves during your storm, but you can choose who you build with when the sun comes back. And if you hold on, just long enough, you'll see that what's waiting on the other side of the pain is a life more beautiful than the one you thought was over. Thank you for listening to my story. If it meant something to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a little hope today.